I call the meeting of the City of Victor Harbor Ordinary Council meeting of the 24th of July 2023. Could everyone please be upstanding, if you're able to, for the acknowledgements? The City of Victor Harbor acknowledges the Remenjiri and the Ngarrindjeri people, traditional custodians of the land and surrounding waters where we live and work. We acknowledge their deep connection to country and pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging. This respect is extended to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across Australia.
City of Victor Harbor is committed to diversity, equity and inclusion. We respect people of all ages, abilities, genders, sexualities, religions, cultures and backgrounds.
We recognise the brave individuals who have served and continue to serve our nation. We remember those who've lost their lives and paid the ultimate sacrifice to our country.
Almighty God, we ask you to bless this council and allow it to be an agent of change to the people of this city and beyond. Direct and prosper its deliberations to the honouring of your name and the welfare of the people whom it serves. Amen.
Thank you, members. Please be seated. I welcome the senior management team, the CEO and staff, as well as elected members and members of the community in the gallery, as well as the members in the community who are watching on our live stream. We have only one apology tonight, and that's Mayor Jenkins. She's on leave currently. There's no other apologies. Thank you. We'll go to our first item for this evening, 4.1. It's an adjourned item of the time-limited street parking at Whalers Restaurant. There are three recommendations. The first recommendation is that the council implement 3-hour time-limited parking Monday to Sunday between the hours of 9 and 5 p.m. to the 14 car parks directly to the front of Whalers Restaurant. I'm seeking a member to move.
I'll move them on block.
Move them on block. Does anybody want to discuss these separately? No, we'll move them on block. The next two two recommendations that council implement a clearway along Jagger Road at the existing driveway crossover loading zone adjacent to the Whalers Restaurant. And recommendation 3 is that council retain free public car parking with no time limit within the 39 car parking spaces in Jagger Road extension at the rear of Whalers Restaurant and adjoining the Bluff Resort. Moved on block by Councillor Mann. Do you want to speak to the motion? I'm seeking the seconder. Councillor Henderson, do you want to speak to the... Any member want to speak to the recommendations? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want clarification to check that whilst there may be time limitations to ensure there's no intention of putting parking meters there. I couldn't read anything, I just wanted to double check.
Okay, I'll ask the CEO to respond to clarify your question.
Through the Deputy Mayor, no, there's no intention at this stage.
Councillor Burns, sorry, Councillor Cornberry, you got a...
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess parking seems to be a big issue down that area. I fish there a fair bit, and I know that during the tuna season, it's near on impossible to get a parking if you're later than 6 o'clock in the morning. Have we looked at any other strategy or any other options to actually add more parking down there some way? Is there, I did hear once, I did speak to someone in the boating community, they said there was talk about extending the break wall and then cutting back on an angle and filling all that area in, which from what I ascertain would be, 50 to 100 car parks. Is that something that's ever been entertained?
CEO, would you like to respond?
Through the Deputy Mayor, the Boating Facilities Advisory Group have looked at a number of different options for parking. I believe that was one option that was probably considered some time ago. It would be at considerable cost and may or may not actually get any approval from the EPA. The Facilities Group has looked at extensions up on Jagged Road, and there's also a park up on Jagged Road where the overflow parking is put in place, and that seems to be addressing some of the concerns. But yes, unless there is actually a reclaim of some of that ocean area, there really is limited in terms of any additional parking down there. That's where the overflows up Jagger Road seem to be addressing the problem at this stage.
Are there any more questions or comments from the members? If there's not, all in favour of the 3 recommendations, could you please raise your hand? Carried unanimously. Sorry. Okay. Carried. Thank you. Just one thing I did fail to mention at the beginning, just to remind members of conflict of interest at any agenda item, and the new meeting procedures are in place where you only got 3 minutes to talk now, where you'll get a 2-minute bell. Just let you know you only got 1 minute left in your speech. We move to agenda item 5.1, minutes of the previous meeting. That the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held 26th of June 2023 be confirmed as true and accurate. I'm seeking the mover. Councillor Schiller, you're moving it. Do you want to speak to the motion? Looking for a seconder. Is that you, Councillor Mann? Do you want to speak to the motion? Does any member want to speak to the recommendation? All in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Move to item 5.2, minutes of the special council meeting. That the minutes of the special meeting of council held the 28th of June 2023 be confirmed as true and accurate. I'm seeking the mover. Councillor Mann, you're moving. Do you want to speak to it? Councillor Mackenzie, you're seconding it. Do you want to speak to it? Does any member like to speak to it? Yes, Councillor Coimbra.
Sorry, I just missed that. We're on the petitions 8.1, is that
No,
right?
sorry, we're on 5.2 minutes of the special
my
council
apologies.
meeting.
No,
That's fine. Councillor Quinton, thank you. We just started on our minutes, so we're just passing. Are you want to speak to the special council meeting minutes? No, thank you. All those in favour, could you please raise your hands? Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We have item 8.1, petition on homelessness. That council receive and note the homelessness petition as provided attachment A, seeking a mover for that. Oh, sorry. Yes, I thank you very much. I'll just move that one for the moment because we'll jump ahead. Item 6, my apologies. We have Mr. Chambers around, we're talking about a deputation roundabout at the intersection of Highmarsh Road and Wattle Drive. Mr. Chambers, are you in the gallery? And your off-sider, could you please come up to the table? You have 10 minutes for your deputation. At the 8-minute mark, you'll have a bell. It will give you a notification of 2 minutes. Allow yourself for any questions from the chamber in that 10 minutes. If you do feel like you need a little bit extra time, just raise your hand and we'll seek leave of the meeting to give you an extension. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Our concerns are regarding the safety of turning from McCracken onto Hindmarsh Drive. There's been several submissions to the council and to local members concerning the problem there, and we're here to give a deputation. For more than 20 years, Mr. Fee and his wife have been complaining, this is Bob Fee beside me, about the difficulty of turning right out of any of the side roads from McCracken Estate onto Hindmarsh. 10 years ago, Bob penned letters to both Michael Pengelly, member for Finnis, and Tom Kunsantonis from the Department of Transport and Planning. So this issue has been on the table for quite some time now. My wife and I moved to Lamont Road in McCracken in 2012, and we both experienced difficulties accessing Hindmarsh Road from McCracken to go into Victor Harbour. Problem is the traffic coming down and up both ways just doesn't give way. It's really hard to get out. It's true from any roads that lead from McCracken onto Hindmarsh. Some more difficult than others. Wattle Drive, Adair Avenue likely being best, the drive and Adair Avenue. There's been 3 or 4 fairly serious motor accidents at the intersection of Hindmarsh and Wattle. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt or killed in them. Those incidents prompted me to write to council and question the safety of these intersections and whether there were plans to address it. And the result of that communication was an abrogation of council responsibility, claiming the road was under the purview of the Department of Transport and Planning, and they are responsible for upgrades. Begs the question, what are council's responsibilities to the ratepayers and residents of McCracken, providing a safe means onto Hindmarsh into Victor Harbour? One wonders why there are 6 roundabouts on Franklin Drive in Counter Bay, and there would be a fraction of the traffic that is seen on Hindmarsh. Roundabouts are designed to allow easier access to side road traffic entering a busier main road. Surely there is no stronger case for a roundabout than this Hindmarsh Road Wattle Drive situation. There have been several representations to council by various ratepayers, including myself. In 2013, I wrote a letter to council. Last year, a letter to the editor of the Times newspaper. The result of these representations over time has been some traffic flow studies, feasibility study and estimate of installing a roundabout. We note that the council voted no to proceed with a full-blown study and costing, voting 4-3 against doing so. We wonder why. Bob and I have both perused these studies, do have some reservations and contradictions to the findings. There's been a huge growth of population in the suburb of Hayborough. Quite a proportion of these residents work, shop and conduct business in Victor Harbour. We should not forget Port Elliot, Middleton and even Goulburn residents who may also contribute traffic flow in Hindmarsh. Further land releases are already intended. This traffic will increase traffic flow, adding to the load presently being experienced on Hindmarsh. Upon listening to the news and current affairs concerning tourism remaining onshore at home, one is to think that this will also impact the local traffic as more vacationers visit the local area. Traffic flow is evidenced in studies commissioned by council on several occasions, one stating daily traffic numbers at 14,000 vehicles and another at 18,000. This would increase by some 30% come vacation time and over long weekends. And you only have to stand on one of the corners on Hindmarsh and see that it is a danger to attempt to pull in traffic flow. It seems that sometimes the traffic speeds up to stop you from coming out. One never sees a mobile speed camera between the Hindmarsh Bridge and Bunnings roundabout. Maybe you need to approach the police about that. McCracken is surrounded by the Hindmarsh River and vacant land on the western and northern boundary and the golf course on the eastern boundary, while access via McCracken Drive to Victor Harbour Road on the east boundary, all other traffic heading into Victor must use the streets that front onto Hindmarsh. With the increase of traffic on the Hindmarsh Road, particularly during vacation periods and long weekends, this access becomes more difficult and dangerous. According to the BE Engineering traffic study, the Wattle Drive intersection performs poorly. The level of service E and an average delay of 35 seconds in the morning peak between 11 and 12. How that can be a peak, I don't know. This is considered acceptable by DIT. Wattle Drive experiences higher traffic volumes between 8 and 9 in the morning with a level of service D and a delay of 26 seconds, which doesn't sound much, but when you're trying to get onto the road, and you've got an appointment, it's a long time. The same is relevant for the PM peak between 1500 and 1600 hours, 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Most residents of McCracken would dispute these delay times, possibly doubling at times, triple these times. Their experience would be a longer delay and inevitably taking a dangerous risk to enter the traffic flow. This also does not consider the unsure aged drivers who at times are very reluctant to attempt to enter the traffic stream, thus causing a further backup of traffic on these side roads. Once again, these drivers attempt to enter the traffic stream at a much slower pace than is safe to do so, increasing the probability of an accident. If a roundabout were to be installed, the act of turning onto Hindmarsh Road would be much safer for all drivers, as there would be more opportunity to turn given that the drivers on the left are obliged to give way. The old give way to the right rule. The study states the Hindmarsh Road does not experience any delays, it experiences non-stop flow of traffic. However, Wattle Drive experiences moderate to significant queues and delays at the peak hours. The report also mentions that should a roundabout be installed as a solution, that Hindmarsh Road would experience a small delay of 4.7 seconds in the AM, 5.3 seconds in the PM. Massive amount of time. Both these are a level of service A, still at top performance. However, the solution produces a better result from Wattle Drive in that a roundabout would significantly reduce the delays and increase the level of service to B for all peak hours, which is far more acceptable for ratepayers, for residents. It would be a small price for the users of Hindmarsh Road to suffer a small delay in their commute instead of the residents of McCracken. Most residents would also disagree with the statement in the study that holiday traffic does not have any significant impact on the local road network or Hindmarsh Road. I don't know what planet they're on. While a delay experienced by ratepayers and residents is at the forefront of our minds, the more important issue is how we are to safely join the traffic flow on Hindmarsh Road. Thank you. It is commendable that the council is proceeding with a turning lane and an exit slip lane at the Wattle Road intersection, but these solutions are only half the answer to the problem. There does not seem to be too much of a problem turning right into McCracken off Hindmarsh. The problem is right turn out of the suburb onto Hindmarsh. Off Hindmarsh, I'm sorry. The problem is the right turn out of the suburb onto Hindmarsh. If one turns from Wattle Drive and gets caught on the slip lane, one then has to accelerate hard and take unnecessary risks to enter the traffic flow. I would dislike seeing an unsure aged driver get caught in that lane and not be able to enter the traffic flow. Even as competent drivers, we have to take unnecessary risks. The resident ratepayers wholeheartedly agree with the final conclusion of the study that the installation of a roundabout at the intersection will result in a better performance for the Wattle Drive approach, both with existing conditions and anticipated traffic volumes in 2036. However, we find it unacceptable that the solution will not be realised until 2036. This is a now problem for the residents' ratepayers and needs to be addressed urgently. The old question arises, does someone need to be killed or badly injured before anything is done to address the problem? We urge the council to urgently address this issue, either budgeting for a build of a roundabout with shared costs with state government, or by advocating on the residents' behalf with state government to provide funds to construct a roundabout. Can we have a bit more time, please?
Seek lead of the meeting to give an extension of at least 1 more minute. You've had 10 minutes already, Mr. Chambers, so if you want questions and answers. But
Bob would like to say something.
Just a few words, I'll be brief. Mr Deputy Mayor, councillors. I was 60 when I retired to here. That was 26 years ago. So I'm 86. I can't wait to 2035 for a roundabout. And both times I've talked to the Department of Transport, the Minister in charge of the Department of Transport, Constantosis, he's twice, once he was a previous governor, and our local politician. They've advised me I should drive over the top of Cudmore, up the huge hill of Cudmore, out of McCracken, turn left, drive up to Bunnings, go around the roundabout and come back to Victor. That's a total of 3 kilometres. Now, if 2,000 vehicles that leave McCracken every day to go to Victor Harbour, that's 6,000 kilometres and 450 litres of fuel. Doesn't seem sensible to me. The other thing is, there's only 2 roads to get out of McCracken. McCracken is bordered by a golf course and a river. We on one side of the golf course cannot get out to come to Victor Harbour, to go to the doctor, the dentist, the hospital, shops. Thank God we've got a Coles and an Aldi, we can now go up left. Thank God we've got a chemist up there too, that helps. Anyway, so that's about all I've got to say. It's just very difficult. There's a lot of old people like me. They sit on that corner and wait, and then they have to take the chance to get out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chambers and Mr.
Thank you.
Fee. Just anyone of the members got an urgent question they'd like to ask? If not, thank you very much, gentlemen, for presenting your case, and the chamber has listened. So through debates and workshops, hopefully we can come to some resolution to move your pointer forward.
Thank you very much.
We were hoping there'd be some urgency.
Yep.
I've advised the DIT that we're coming tonight to talk to you, and hope you do something to them anyway.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
deputation. I know staff have taken on board your comments and made a note, no doubt. So we'll wait and see what our future workshops will look at as our chamber and the council will move forward. Thank you. We move to item 7, questions from the gallery. In accordance with the Code of Practice for Meeting Procedures, the presiding member did not receive any questions from the gallery within 7 clear days prior to the meeting. That is a change in our current Code of Practice for Meeting Procedures, that any questions from the gallery, so the community be mindful that if you want to raise any questions to the chamber on a council meeting, you need to give 7 clear days in notice in writing to the CEO or to the mayor. Thank you. We'll move to petition, item 8.1, petition homelessness. That council receive and note the homelessness petition is provided attachment A. I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Schofield, do you want to speak to the motion? Seeking the seconder. Councillor Henderson, do you want to speak to the motion? Is any member like to speak to the motion? Councillor Corimba.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a question for administration. In the risk assessment, under reputation, the risk assessment has been as medium, and from my understanding is that a lot of the community, or the administration don't believe a lot of the community understand exactly how much the council does for this issue. Is that a messaging issue, or is it just that what we do is still not enough?
CEO, would you like to respond, please?
Through the Deputy Mayor, it's probably a bit of both in terms of the roles and responsibilities of both state government and local council. What we do, what we can do. Again, council has the ability, it may wish to do more. But again, the community may not understand council's total role in the area of homelessness.
Thank you. I guess, obviously, a few of us went to a forum not long ago, and there was quite a few irate people there, and I think there's a bit of a groundswell for us to do something or do more within the council to actually help these people. You know, as I said, previously I have experienced homelessness. It's not fun, but I was thankful that I had people around me to help me, and I think I want to give back, and I would encourage other elected members to do everything we can to address this issue. Thank you.
Any other member like to speak to the motion? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm pleased to see a petition come in from the community, and I hope that we're able to relook at the council. The council does a fair amount, but I think with everything and with all the groups that are providing services, there's always an opportunity to look at how effective that is and if we can do more. And I'd like to hope that we will discuss that in future workshops to see how we might be able to improve in areas that are being sought, if possible.
No worries, thank you. Councillor, there's no more discussion. Councillor Schofield, would you like to close the debate?
I'd just like to make one comment, and that is to the people that presented the petition to us. Council, thank you very much for doing that. It's an issue that we've all reflected on and are reflecting on at the moment. and be rest assured that we will do the best that we possibly can. So thank you for bringing that to us.
Since that's the close of the debate, all in favour of the recommendation, please raise your hands. No one is against. Carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 9.1, outstanding resolutions for July 2023. That the council receive and note the outstanding resolutions of July 2023 report. I'm seeking a mover, Councillor Mann. Seeking a seconder, Councillor Quinton. Do you want to speak to the outstanding reports, resolutions? No? Does any member like to speak to the outstanding resolutions? Councillor Coimbra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just resolution 0, or is it OC 4932020? Bridge renaming, Back Valley Bridge and Pioneer Bridge.
Could you put a page number for that,
Oh,
please?
sorry, page 43.
Councillor, sorry, so yeah, would you like to respond? Director Hayter, are you able to answer the question?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, I just wanted to ask a question regarding the actual.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's
I
all right.
thought it
That's
was
all
a
right.
part of the question.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just sort of trying to understand here. So with the Narrandjeri Aboriginal Corporation has not raised any concerns regarding the signage, hence a sign will be installed as per council resolution. What happens if the Narrandjeri Aboriginal Corporation don't want the sign to go up? Does that not happen then? Is it a discussion, or is it just a blanket veto?
Through the chair. No, it's more around this particular signage has a lot of text on it, and there is a section in there that has a specific reference to Narrandjeri cultural heritage. And so we were asking the Narrandjeri Aboriginal Corporation to comment on specifically on the text that relates to them. So we did in fact meet with them today, and they've suggested a few wording changes, but that's all.
Councillor Burns, you have a question?
Yes, just to thank administration. I found the updated notes really helpful and quite comprehensive. Thank you for that.
Any other members got any questions on the outstanding resolutions? No. Closer, would you like to make any comments? No, sorry, Councillor Mann. And all those in favour, could you please raise your hands? Those against, carried unanimously. Going to agenda item 9.2, bylaws review of 2023. We have to do these separately, and in accordance with section 249 of the Local Government Act 1999, a bylaw cannot be made unless the bylaw is made at a meeting of the council, where at least 2/3 of the members of the council are present, which we have, and the relevant resolution supported by an absolute majority of the members of the council. The first recommendation, that council, in exercise of the powers contained in section 246 of the Local Government Act 1999, having satisfied the consultation requirements of the Act and had regard to the following. 1. Correspondence received from the Dog and Cat Management Board in respect to bylaw number 5, dogs and bylaw number 6. Cats has provided attachment A under separate cover. 2. Community engagement summary report containing the submissions received as provided attachment B under separate cover. Number 3, National Competition Policy Report has provided attachment C. And number 4, certificates of validity provided by Norman Waterhouse lawyers as provided attachment D. We do have Mr. Paul Kelly from Norman Waterhouse online if anyone has any questions on the bylaws, but I'm seeking a mover for recommendation number 1. Councillor Mann, you're moving. Do you want to speak to the bylaw number 1? So I'm seeking a seconder. Councillor Burns, do you want to speak to the motion?
Just that I'm supporting it, but I did have one initial concern to do with the cat clause, but in reading through the bylaws, I was satisfied that my concerns were addressed, so it's fine.
Thank you. Are there any other members who like to speak or ask questions on recommendation number 1? If there's no more debate on the matter, Councillor Mann, do you want to close? I'll seek approval. If all in favour, please raise your hand. Those against, not. All carried unanimously. Recommendation number 2, that council hereby makes and passes the following bylaws as provided attachment E. Bylaw number 1, permits and penalties of 2023. Bylaw number 2, movable signs of 2023. Bylaw 3, roads of 2023. Bylaw 4, local government land of 2023. Bylaw 5, dogs of 2023. Bylaw 6, cats of 2023. And Bylaw 7, foreshore of 2023. I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Henderson, do you want to speak to the motion? Looking for a seconder. Councillor Burns, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, just say we'll be supporting it. I did have a concern about bylaw 7, the foreshore, about non-native animals being on there. But again, I agree with administration's comments in there, and I agree that it can be adequately managed, so there's no problem.
Any other member like to speak to the recommendation or ask any questions? If not, Councillor Henderson, you want to close the debate? If I seek approval, all those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Recommendation number 4, that council, sorry, my apologies. 3 first. Yes, there we go. Don't want to cut you out, CEO. You won't have a job. Number 3, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to sign the bylaws endorsed by council and to publish notice of the making of the bylaws in the local newspaper and to arrange for the bylaws to be published in the South Australian Government Gazette. I seek a mover for that. Councillor Mann. Councillor Henderson, you're seconding. Thank you. Do you want to speak to it? Does anybody want to speak to the bylaw? No. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Number 4, that council adopts the Legislative Review Committee reports on bylaws as provided at attachment F and authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign the Legislative Review Committee reports and arrange for the bylaws and all other necessary documentation to be provided to the Legislative Review Committee. I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Schiller, do you want to speak to it? Councillor Schofield, you're seconding. Do you want to speak to the motion? Does any member want to speak to the motion? All those in favour then? Carried unanimously. Thank you. That's the end of that. Thank you, Mr. Paul Kelly from Norman Waterhouse, been online. Thank you. That was it. We move to agenda item 9.3, the Merrill report from April to June 23. That the council receive and note the Merrill report for the period of April to June 2023. I'm seeking the mover. Councillor Henderson. Councillor Burns, you're seconding. Councillor Henderson or Burns, would you like to speak to it? Does any member like to speak to the Merrill report? No. All those in favour, raise your hands. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 9.4, the 23-24 capital budget works in progress. Recommendation that council approve an increase to net capital expenditure of $1,164,300 to facilitate the completion of the 22-23 work in progress projects as detailed in this report. I seek a mover. Councillor Mann, do you want to speak to this motion? Seeking the seconder. Councillor Henderson, do you want to speak to it? Does any member want to speak to it? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My question is, I was trying to understand why this amount was not included in the budget when we went through all the capital items, because it's a significant amount of money. And I mean, most of this must have been known. I was trying to understand why.
Yep. Would Director Finance Manager Kelly Knight-Stacey please answer? Could you answer the question, please?
Thank you, through the chair. And so the budget was adopted on the 26th of June, and some of the projects we were still hoping to have completed at the 30th of June. So it's typically a situation that does happen during the budget process, that there are some projects that aren't completed at the date that when they were going to be. Based on the information we had at the time, we put the budget forward, and since then we've been able to finalise the costs of the projects and what was spent in 22-23, and these ones have come forward because they haven't been able to be completed. So it is a process that we do go through each year, but with the information we had at hand at the time, we weren't sure of whether these would be completed in full or how much would still be required.
Just a follow-on question. In that case, wouldn't you make a provision in the budget?
Through the chair, that is one way to do that, but it would be a guess because at the time when I'm putting the budget together, the project officers haven't provided all the information about the completion of the projects. And so whilst we could include a nominal figure, it would likely need to come back to council in the July workshop to be adjusted anyway.
Any other member like to? Councillor Coimbra?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was actually looking through all the things that are outstanding or haven't been finished. Do you have a completion date attached to any of your contracts, like a handover date, or is it these contracts sort of for works open?
Yep. Can the Director Hayter please?
Through the chair, it depends on the project that you're talking about. For some projects we do have, but then there are variations, obviously, if they can't get materials or labour. Some of these things we're delivering, so it depends. There isn't a one-size-fits-all in this list.
Okay. And what sort of budgetary implication does this have to the rate amount that we set? Is there any increase, or this is the same?
There's no
change.
There's
at
no
all?
change.
Okay.
It's a capital projects.
So it's just carried over.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and no, I mean, unfortunately, you know, there's not a sort of 30 June stop and we do a stock take. It doesn't quite work that way with the project. So some have carried over, and it is quite common in terms of a lot of the work that we do. But this actually, I believe, provides more clarity for the council because you can see exactly what is being carried over from last financial year as opposed to the projects you've endorsed for the 23-24 financial year.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other members who like to make comments or ask questions? Not. Councillor Mann, would you like to close the debate? All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Thank you. We go to item 10.1, Christmas decorations, public art commissioning plan. The council endorses 1, the 2023 Christmas decoration commissioning plan is provided attachment A and proceed with implementation. 2, the Arts and Culture Advisory Group consider and engage 3 local artists to prepare and assess preliminary concepts for them to be presented to council for a final decision. I seek a mover. Councillor Henderson, do you want to speak to the motion? Seek a seconder. If we don't get a seconder, it will lapse. Councillor Schofield, you're seconding. Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, look, I will. I note on the plan that we're basically looking at coming down from the roundabout in front of Jones and Partners, virtually down to just short of Michael Pengelly's, by the look of it. I would have thought that some of our decorations would have been on the roundabouts coming into Victor Harbour, something quite simple, and also looking at our bridges and putting some nice bows on them, rather than just spend all that money on that small section. That's just my thought.
Councillor Schofield, is that a question you'd like to be answered by administration as to the actual whereabouts and where it could be?
No, in the fact that they've actually identified on this map where it's going to be and what they want to do, but I would like to think that there would be consideration taken to do something with the rest of the city.
Thank you for that, Councillor Schofield. No doubt staff would take that on board as a commentary for the advisory group to consider. Thank you. Is any other member? Councillor Coimbra.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was having a read. Am I correct in saying that we're going to pay 3 artists to come up with a quote essentially and an idea? Is that what we're doing? $1,000 each?
The CEO.
Through the Deputy Mayor, yes, that is the approach, and it's the approach Council has used for all of its other public art commissions. It's and that's if 3 artists, I mean, the selection has been around 3, but it's to enable them to develop their maquettes or samples of whatever that art may be. But it's as per the Council's policy for commissioning of public art.
Right. I mean, I can't support this. $100,000 will, what is it, $98,000 for is
It's
that right?
not
No?
that total amount is just for this. I mean, that includes other elements of the Christmas decoration proposal. It's set out in the budget bid that was presented to council.
Yeah.
I believe that also includes some light installation and some other projects. This is only part of that amount. It's not the total
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah, I know. It just seems like when people are doing it tough to spend $100,000 on decoration seems a bit excessive, but I guess I don't know the real price of decorations. So, but yeah, I just can't see the logic in this. But anyway, that's fine. Thank you.
Is there any other member who'd like to make comment?
If I could just, I got a bit confused as well, trying to understand the numbers, because there's in the budget implication section, there's 2 parts to it. So I'll just get a bit of clarification as to, what that each entails, if that makes sense.
Yes, Director Pathouse, you be able to answer that, please?
So through the chair, this this report is a component of the overall budget for festive season decorations, and it's the component that relates to the commissioning of an artist. So the value of this component of the work is $30,000, or sorry, I should say $33,000, including the request from the respective 3 artists, the request for a design. And then the commissioning at $30,000. The balance of the budget is for general decorations, Christmas trees, those sorts of things throughout town. Some of the banners and the like.
Okay. So the first part of it, the $3,000 less report expenditure, that's the commission to each of the 3 artists to come up with their idea, and then the $30,000 in the second component is to execute the project.
Director Hayter or Kelly Knight-Stacey, Financial Manager.
Thank you, through the chair. It is split within this budget implication section because part of it is an operating cost. So the expression of interest for the artist, because it's not detailed design, we actually have to treat that as operating, so it's hitting a different budget line. Whereas once that artist has been selected and it goes on to commissioning, then we can capitalise. So that's why there's those 2 separate lines there, if that helps.
And so there's a current budget of $98,500 in the capital budget for this work, but hopefully would only be 30,000 used of it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I'll ask the CEO if she likes to add any more clarification.
If I may, through Deputy Mayor, just in terms of the budget bid that was presented to council when this item was endorsed and the amount, so it includes a number of other items. So we've got this design work, which is the total of 30,000. There's also there's some street banners included in that, the illuminate Christmas tree lighting, which is also part of it. It includes shed storage for these items and also the installation. The idea is whatever is created is actually a long-term asset for council that it can use over many years. So this time it is a cost, but the idea is that we would retain these decorations to be reinstalled for years to come. This has come about as of council not investing in a number of Christmas decorations for a period of time. We had a lot of criticism from our community over a period of time because we weren't very Christmassy. This is about addressing that issue. But it's not an ongoing cost. A lot of this will be reused.
Councillor Burns.
Thank you. Question for the CEO, if I may. Just wanted to check if there was a 30,000 budget in the last financial year. Was any of the money rolled over as part of this, or
No, there's no money that's rolled over. The rolling over is exactly what you just did previously. We have to actually reappoint, get council's approval to recapitalise the ongoing process of those projects. As of 30 June, we start again on all of our items.
Any other member? Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kemp. Just to raise quickly, I appreciate some of the concerns around the chamber. I think over the past 5 years, I've seen a lot of community backlash when we haven't done any community decorations, and then when we tried to do a few, there was backlash around that the cardboard trees weren't, wooden trees weren't good enough, and hopefully through this process, which was part of the budget that we put out to the community and consulted on, we'll get some hopefully long life decorations that will help alleviate some of those concerns that probably the community shared for, I know, at least 5 years now. So appreciate all the views though.
Councillor Corimba, you've already spoken, so you've got a question?
Just a question.
Thank you.
So we will see these designs for approval before we...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other member like to make a comment or ask a question on this item? If not, all those in favour, please raise your hand. And those against? Carried. Thank you. We come to item 10.2, the guidelines and panel appointments of the festivals and events sponsorship program for 23-24. There are three parts to this. Depending on who will be nominating, we may need to go out of meeting procedures to look at who will nominate and then go back into meeting procedures for appointment. The first recommendation that the council approves the 23-24 festivals and events sponsorship program guidelines to provide attachment A and call for applications. I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to this? Seconder, Councillor Schofield, would you like to speak to it? Any member would like to speak to the recommendation? No. In accordance with the nomination and appointment to internal and external positions on the page 25 of the Code of Practice. Oh, sorry, my apologies, I'm rushing ahead here. All those in favour, could you please raise your hands? Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. In accordance with the nomination and appointment to internal and external positions on page 25 of the Code of Practice for meeting procedures, with the consent of 2/3 of the members of the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, as I am, will call for a suspension in meeting procedures in order to seek nominations for the Festival and Events Sponsorship Assessment Panel. If there's more than 3 nominations received, recommendation 2 should apply, which is a secret ballot will take place. So I seek moving out of meeting procedures for 5 minutes. Do I have 2/3 majority of the chamber to go out of meeting procedures? Thank you. We can call for any nominations. 3 positions to be filled for the Festival and Events Sponsorship Program. Councillor Henderson, you've nominated. Councillor Schofield. Any other nominations from the floor? Councillor Corimba is the 3rd person. Anybody else would like to nominate for a position? Okay, if no one is going to nominate for a position, we'll move back into meeting procedures and we'll go to recommendation 3, that council appoint Councillor Henderson, Councillor Schofield and Councillor Corimba to the Festival Events Sponsorship Assessment Panel to assess the 23-24 Festival and Events Sponsorship applications and to make subsequent recommendations to Council. I seek a mover. Councillor Schiller, would you like to speak to this? Seconder, Councillor Burns, would you like to speak to it?
I was just going to say I would have nominated them on so many committees. I thought it's good to see a mixture of both returning and new councillors on the committee. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Any other member like to speak to the recommendation? If not, all those in favour? Thank you very much. Carried unanimously. We'll move to item 12.1, which is the Victor Harbor Sports, Recreation and Open Space Strategy. 2 recommendations. I'll do them on block if nobody wants to discuss them separately. Does anybody want to discuss recommendations separately? No. Two recommendations are that council receive and note the Victor Harbour Sports, Recreation, Open Space Strategy, Community Engagement Report as presented at Attachment A. 2, the council endorses the Victor Harbour Sport, Recreation and Open Space Strategy as presented under separate cover. I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Mann, do you want to speak to the, seeking a seconder? Councillor McKenzie, do you want to speak to it? Does any member like to speak to the two recommendations? Yes, Councillor Karimba.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a note, I guess, the community has, there's quite a large sentiment regarding the need for enhancing what we already have and looking after what we already have. It seems to be, I've heard a few people say that some of our sort of parks and facilities aren't exactly at the best of standards. What are we doing in regards to trying to focus a bit more on keeping what we have? Because obviously we're going to get a lot more once we have more development, but how do we accommodate that?
CEO, do you like to speak to it?
Yes, I guess that was part of our budget bid in terms of resourcing it, because we still have only the same size parks and garden workforce as we've had in previous years, and we are only increasing the more developers hand over to council for care and control. So part of also looking at our service level standards. So part of this strategy was actually to identify and prioritise those main parks and reserves and recreation areas that council see or members of our community see as a priority, and sort of look at coordinating our workforce accordingly. But it is around resourcing because it requires human capital to continue to care in those areas.
Just a follow-up question. I know that we do get a lot of space given to us from developers as part of the development. Is there any way that we can nominate what they give us instead of just giving us essentially land that they don't want?
Unfortunately, no. So part of their development is that, you know, their roads, their footpaths, their curbing, their parks does become under council's care and control. So no, we can't say we won't have it. We obviously try to have influence as to what we get ownership of in terms of the style and design and the maintenance of them, so that we aren't taking on something that's unreasonable. But no, unfortunately, that's part of their development approval is what we receive.
So that's a state law then that says that you have to have this much open space for this much development. That's what you're going to get?
Yeah.
So if we wanted to change that, we would actually have to approach state government?
Well, it's not so much council. The City of Victor Harbour isn't impacted by that requirement for the amount of open space as metropolitan areas are. But again, it's up to the developer in terms of their approvals of their designs when they come through the development process. So there isn't a limit on what we say the how much is open space.
Yeah.
It's more around the design and its care and ongoing care and control, because it becomes our responsibility.
I guess what I'm alluding to, is there any way we can ask for, say, some land that actually can be developed by the council for, say, affordable housing, or is that something that can be done, or is that something that has to be changed at state level?
I think some of those questions are coming up, but I asked Graham Pathouse to answer that.
Yeah, through the chair, that if it's not specifically tied to open space, then it becomes very difficult to extract land or a contribution. Unless part of the development requires rezoning, and that's when council's probably in a position to negotiate those sort of things. But if the land is already zoned, it's really a case of trying to achieve those things through a development assessment process. Very difficult point in time to do that beyond the statutory requirements, which is the open space and any of the infrastructure that might be incurred as a result of a land division, the roads and stormwater infrastructure and those sorts of things that will come to council as well.
Yeah, I guess it would be good if we could actually ask them to give us something that's, I guess, more useful to us, a little bit more worthwhile than just, here's a bit of land, you look after it, we fulfilled and ticked our box as part of the development, is sort of what I'm hoping would happen.
What do you an answer? Or is that a question or a statement? Okay, thank you. Any other member like to make a comment? Councillor Henderson.
Just some observations and comments, really. It was interesting that from the community engagement, the activity that involved our residents the most was actually walking over and above all the sports. And 90% of the respondents said that maintaining our gardens, parks, reserves and playgrounds was one of the most important services that we are delivering. And I think those two things really go hand in hand.
Just ask the CEO a question. Could you provide a brief explanation on how many reserves we have, because it is a large number, and you know, the maintenance and ongoing development, and they're categorised into categories as well. Just to give a little bit of an overview, if it's possible. I know it's a big question.
I'm actually going to, I think it's about 3,000, how many hectares of parks and reserves? Yeah. I can look up that question because I did actually answer a number of that just recently, but it's not something I know off the top of my head. But we have a considerable amount of parks and reserves and open space and playgrounds. So that doesn't include all our walking trails that we have care and control of as well. So there's a considerable area, but the exact figure I don't know off the top of my head.
No, thank you for that. Has any other member got any questions or comments? Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kemp. Yeah, just more of a comment, I think, touching upon some of the other comments raised.
Sorry, Councillor Mann, you'll be a closing argument because you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll ask Director Hayter to.
Thank you. Through the chair, just in relation to how many we have, not in hectares, but in terms of numbers, we've got 142 open spaces, including 42 recreation spaces, 12 sporting spaces, 77 nature spaces, and 11 public realm spaces. So in terms of each of those, we have a different service level. So depending on what category, we have 4 different categories, and depending on what category it is in, how and when it gets serviced or maintained. So part of having this work done is that we will, on the back of this, do a service level review to look at those. Are they all categorised in the same way or in the correct way, or might we need to tweak that service level for some of those areas?
Thank you. Any other members like to make comments or ask questions? If not, Councillor Mann, do you like to close the debate?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just quickly to raise, I think, just off the back of this report, and then especially once we do the urban growth management plan, I think from those 2 documents, we'll be able to look more strategically at where we're positioned in terms of the potential for investment, and looking at how we balance that attracting investment and development, but also looking at what those contributions are and how we go about in funding all the open space that we're going to get. As we're all aware, the developers will make the open space look as good as possible to sell the unit, sell the blocks, and then council's stuck with the capital and the maintenance of that. So I think it's just a important consideration from this report, especially going into the future budget cycles, but also when looking at that urban growth plan.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Since the debate's closed, I seek all of those in favour of the 2 recommendations. Could you please raise your hands? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 12.2, outdoor dining fee waiver request. The recommendation is that council denies a fee waiver of $356 for the 2023 outdoor dining permit for Jugees Pastoria. I would seek a mover for that. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to it? Yep, thank you.
Yes, I'm moving this motion because this particular business operation has already had a deferral, like other businesses, during the start of the street closure, and the owner also received a grant of $2,090 as part of the support package that went along with the street closure. Therefore, council really has already provided relief and recognition of the disruption that was caused. And the other reason I think we deny this request is because it also sets a precedent, and all of the other businesses had their business disrupted, and they also had the opportunity to apply for grants and support packages. And I really think council has already done the right thing by all of the businesses in that part of our town.
Yeah. Seeking a seconder for the motion. Councillor Quinton, would you like to speak to it? Would any other member like to speak to Councillor Corimba?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. God forbid we help people down the main street. $365 in a $36 million budget, I don't get it. Yes, the $2,000 I think that they applied for was for, and I think they used it for outdoor furniture. I used to own a restaurant. That doesn't go very far when you're buying outdoor furniture. How long did the project go over time, or was it finished on time? Were there any other disruptions that the Main Street had to do with? Was there any other issues, or do you all smooth sailing, no issues?
Oh, through the CEO, would you like the Director Hayter to answer
Well,
that?
my understanding is that the project was actually delivered on time and on budget within all the timeframes that we advised all the businesses about. And there was extensive consultation with the businesses. And I know it is a disruption. Same disruptions were provided during stage 1, 2 and 3. And there was no provisions provided to those businesses either.
Now, I understand that other businesses might not have applied for it, but that doesn't mean, potentially this business was done it tougher. I don't know the full circumstances, but it's such a measly amount really when we think about it that, yeah, I can't support it. So thank you.
I'll call upon Director Hayter to make a comment.
Thank you, through the chair. Just to clarify there, so the project itself was finished ahead of schedule, so ahead of what we advised the businesses. And this particular business is asking for the compensation, particularly relating to 3 days that were outside the project or done after the project that related to when the road was closed, or once for irrigation, once for art installation, and once for a Telstra pit adjustment. So outside of the main project times.
Does any other member? Councillor Schiller.
Unfortunately, I feel for the particular business that's requesting this, but I reinforce what has been said previously. Unfortunately, that means if we give this person $350, I can't remember the figure, that means every other person within that Main Street precinct is eligible and could come to council looking for the same thing. So it's just precedent setting, and it's just got to be by the rule book.
Yeah. Any other members? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My understanding is that not everyone was impacted by this additional work. This business was, and I think that for the amount of money it's worth, giving them what they're asking for, given the disruption, the additional disruption that impacted them, and I won't be supporting the motion.
Councillor Quarrenby, you have a question?
Yeah, do we have discretionary decision making on everything that comes to this chamber, even if there is precedence?
Councillor CEO.
Pretty much everything, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we articulate. The only reason this has come to you is because I don't have the delegation. Most other waivers I do.
Yep.
And the reason why the recommendation is to refuse it, is based on the current council's policies around this matter. So we would present the report in that manner. But it's completely up to the chamber if you choose to support it or otherwise.
So I guess what I'm saying is if other people did come and their circumstance or the reasoning we judged or deemed that unacceptable, then that we have that power to do that, so that it's case by case?
You do have it
Okay.
by case, but again, there is a provision where anyone from the community can request a review of a council decision if it believes it's unfair or unwarranted.
Yeah.
And based on precedents, that would be taken into consideration if it was ever presented to the Ombudsman or someone like that.
Okay, thank you.
Does any other member have a comment or question to raise on this matter? If not, Councillor Henderson, do you want to close the debate? I seek to move this motion. All in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Carried. Thank you. We move to item 13.1, the Southern Communities Transport Scheme Advisory Committee to 21st of June 2023. That council received the minutes of the Southern Communities Transport Scheme Advisory Committee held on the 21st of June 2023. I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Henderson, do you want to speak to it? It's seeking a seconder. Councillor Schofield, you want to speak to it? Does any member like to speak to this recommendation? All those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Carried unanimously. Item 13.2, the Fleurieu Region Community Service Advisory Committee of 11th of July 2023, that Council received the minutes of the Fleurieu Region Community Services Advisory Committee held on 11th of July 2023. Seeking a mover, Councillor Mann. Seeking a seconder, Councillor Schiller. Would any of you like to speak to the motion? Would any member like to speak to the recommendation? Councillor Corimba.
It's just a question regarding 7.2. There seems to be a report, local government response to homelessness. Is that a report? Will that be presented to the chamber at all? Just out of interest?
Through the Deputy Mayor. That was a presentation that Leanne Simons presented.
Apologies, thank you.
Is any other member to raise a question or make a comment? If not, all those in favour of receiving it, raise your hands. Thank you. Carried unanimously. We move to 13.3, the CEO's Performance Review Committee, 21st of April 2023 and 11th of July 2023. There's two recommendations, but there are several steps in it, and considering that this is an important part, I will do them separately, and I will read out all the steps because I think it's important that the community understands the CEO's performance process. The first recommendation that Council receive and note the CEO's Performance Review Committee minutes of 21 of April 2023 and 11th of July 23 and provide attachment A. I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Schofield, you'll like to speak to it. Seconder for the Councillor Quinton, you like to speak to it? Does any member like to speak to the recommendation? If not, all those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. The second recommendation, and it is a bit long-winded, please be patient. The Council endorses the following process to complete the CEO's performance review for the 22-23 period. Step 1, notifies Chief Executive Officer in April 2023, provide written notification to the Chief Executive Officer that her 22-23 performance review will commence on the 1st of July 2023. Step 2, welfare check April to July 2023. The Mayor and the independent qualified person to consult with the Chief Executive Officer on her welfare following her health and evaluate how she's going with returning to work in full capacity, whether the CEO working hours needs to be amended to assist with her recovery. Step 3, KPI report of July 23. Invite the Chief Executive Officer to provide a report to the committee on her performance against the key performance indicators, current status and present evidence of completion of work in progress or work in progress towards completion. Step 4, performance criteria, which is July 23. At a committee meeting in July 23, the members of the committee, Chief Executive Officer and an independent qualified person to establish key performance criteria based on performance standards set out in the Chief Executive Officer's employment agreement. The criteria may include corporate governance, organisational planning, human resource management, major projects, asset management, financial management and learning and development. Step 5, the rating, July 23. At the same meeting as the performance criteria are being considered, the committee and the Chief Executive Officer will provide input into the evaluation criteria and consider the methodology for capturing and rating information to the independent qualified person, at which time the committee and Chief Executive Officer could ask the independent qualified person how additional input from third parties, if required, can be collected using the same objective methodology. The independent qualified person, in consultation with the committee and Chief Executive Officer, will provide a survey tool to collect information pertinent to the review, which can be used effectively in conjunction with direct discussions. The consultant will develop a rating scale designed to provide fair, equitable and accurate results to guide the committee and the Chief Executive Officer in their deliberations. The rating tool will be presented at a subsequent meeting for the committee and Chief Executive Officer to mutually agree upon in consultation with the independent qualified person. Step 6, comparative process in August 2023. At a committee meeting to be held in August 2023, the committee and the Chief Executive Officer will review the comparative process. The Chief Executive Officer will be invited to respond to the initial feedback and subsequent meeting. The committee will analyse response and add any further comments, for example, in relation to general performance and future objectives. Step 7, finalise performance review in August 2023. At a committee meeting to be held in August 2023, the committee and Chief Executive Officer will finalise the appraisal. At this meeting, the CEO remuneration package should be also be reviewed. The committee follows the established criteria when reviewing the Chief Executive Officer's remuneration package in consultation with the independent qualified person. Criteria may include results of a performance review, any movement in employees' salaries, consumer price indexation, any award increases as applicable, and the remuneration tribunal determination for Chief Executive Officers, if applicable. Step 8, Ordinary Council meeting, August or September 2023. The report will be presented to the next available Ordinary Council meeting for the committee to make recommendations for the Council to ratify. Now, that's a very in-depth process I've read out there that the CEO goes through, part of her remuneration and review of her performance, and she does this every year. And elected members are involved, as well as senior staff as well, and of course, any third party that the committee would deem. I seek a mover for that. Councillor Henderson, seconder, Councillor Schiller, would like to talk. Sorry. Moved. Yeah. Councillor Schofield moved and Councillor Schiller seconded. Would you two councillors like to speak to the recommendation? Would any member like to speak to the recommendation? Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I understand the process. It's tied into the CEO's contract of employment. I understand that. I think it's just unfortunate that a new elected council doesn't have any input into any of the KPI measures because it's in the contract until the contract comes up. That's my understanding.
I'll ask the CEO to respond to that. I can respond to it. Look, there will be a process, I believe, that will take place where the elected members will have input into KPIs, and that will be taken on board by the committee and the CEO.
So we will.
Yeah, we're not quite sure. It wasn't read out in this process, in that wasn't quite clear, but elected members and I think senior management staff as well would have an input into the KPIs or change those KPIs. Councillor Corimba.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My question isn't so much, it's more to do with the time period from 1st July 2020 to the 30th of June 2023. And it says that it would be unfair to break the CEO while she was away, which I would agree with. But will we have any, is there any review done during that period at all? Or is that just?
Yeah, I asked the CEO to answer that question because she's involved with the committee.
Through the Deputy Mayor, yes. So the review report that I've already presented details the entire year and obviously that of the acting CEO. So that's already been presented. So all council members received a copy of that report. But in terms, you may, as part of that independent survey, there may be some questions around the oversight of the acting CEO, because obviously that appointment was made by me during my absence. So that it is the whole year, but specifically it's my performance review on my performance. I've got to have oversight of the acting CEO.
Is there any other member have a question or a comment to make? Call Councillor Schofield. Would you like to close the debate? Those all in favour of the recommendation number 2, raise your hands, please. In favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We come to item 14, subsidiaries and representative reports. No reports for council decision. There's no matters of urgency unless anyone's got to raise a matter of urgency. No. We have no questions on notice. And do we have any questions without notice? Councillor Corimba.
Just a question regarding the library. What sort of oversight does council have in regards to the books that are on the shelves? I know it may sound like an odd question, but there's just a book at the moment that's creating quite a lot of controversy, and I just want to make sure that we have some level of oversight.
CEO?
Council is part of the One Library system, which all council libraries, like all councils, are part of. So we can obviously share books, and they are assessed by the SA Libraries Board. Yeah, which is based at Unley, is that right? No. No, anyway, but yeah, it's, we could have some direct input if there's a specific book, but it's more broadly, it's all councils are involved in that assessment because all the books are shared amongst the libraries across the state.
It's just one particular book that's been brought to my attention that I don't think is probably appropriate for the age bracket that it's aimed at. So
I'm happy if you want to address that with me and I can
Okay.
have a look at it.
Thank you.
I believe the Director, Karen Rokoczynski, may be able to put some light on this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm aware of what you're referring to, Councillor Karemba, and I'm also aware that ALIA have actually made a determination about the suitability of that book. And as the CEO mentioned, it is part of the One Council, One Card. Two things on my mind, goodness. It is part of the One Card protocols, so it's not something that we as a individual council would make a determination on generally. It's a statewide determination.
Okay, and so that determination has been made on that book. Is that what you said? Yep. And will it be on our shelves?
Through the Deputy Mayor, I'm not certain if it is on our shelf, so I can't give you an answer to that, and
Okay.
it would be in line with that policy
Okay.
from ALIA.
Okay. Would we be able to be notified if it was? So I've quite a few people in the community that are actually quite upset about this book.
We'll take that on notice. The staff will make note and send an email out to all elected members on whether the book is on the shelf or not. Thank you. No other questions without notice? Councillor Schiller.
Just a question about our bikeways. Are there any totally dedicated bikeways for bicycles only, or are all of our pathways shared pathways? I've got a question that I will bring to council later, but I just wanted to know that part of the question tonight.
Yeah, I'll ask Director Hayter if she could answer the question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I believe they're all shared, Councillor Schiller.
Just a clarification on that, when we're talking about shared pathways, we all got trails as well, which are normally shared as well, I believe. Is that correct? Yep. So, yeah, I think all our bikeways, whether they're trails or footpaths, are shared bikeways. Thank you. Any other questions without notice? We'll move now to motions on notice. Our first motion on notice is 18.1. Is Code of Practice for Meeting Procedures, Recording Council and Committee Meetings, Councillor Stuart Burns. In accordance with the regulation of 6.3 of the Local Government Procedures and Meeting Regulations 2013, a council may at any time by resolution or by at least 2/3 of the members of the council entitled to vote on the resolution alter a code of practice or substitute or revoke a code of practice. Councillor Burns, you'd like to move your motion?
Just before I start, just in seeking clarification, it may not be required because, as I understand the policy, it talks about devices rather than individual cameras, and therefore with devices may be multiple equipment. So I'll probably seek clarification on that definition.
So your question is around the terminology used in the procedures about devices, is that correct? And what is the definition of that could be?
Yeah.
CEO, are you able to take that on notice now, or do you want to sort of answer it later?
Yeah, I'll take it on notice that the intent, I believe, of the chamber was that it was one camera, a device for filming camera, whether that be a phone or a camera and a stand. I think there is a specific reference to a camera and a stand within the code, but that was the intent.
Okay, probably good to have a definition.
So you move your motion, or you go withdraw your motion?
No, I'm still to go ahead, which is to amend the recording of council and committee meeting clause on page 36 to 37 within the council's code of practice meeting procedures, to add a sentence which is to allow, however, community media and mainstream news organisations, and by community media, I mean any group within the community, be it a school magazine, an influencer, someone using the internet, and by mainstream media, I'm talking about those that are licensed to use the terrestrial TV channel.
Yep.
Because there is a difference between
Yeah,
those.
could you read your motion out
Sure.
first, and then if you
Okay.
want to make a clarification around
Sure.
the meanings, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. However, community media and mainstream news organisations are exempt from the single camera limitation as long as their equipment does not disturb the meeting, obscure the viewing of members of the public coming to watch the meeting, or prevent those performing their functions, and produces only a single recording outcome.
Okay. For the purpose of the gallery, I think I'll read out this section that you're referring to in the meeting procedures, so people have a better understanding about the debate. The current reading of the meeting procedures is recording, including filming, photography and audio from the public gallery is allowed, provided that it does not disturb the meeting or prevent those taking part in the meeting from performing their functions, and is limited to one device per person. It is not connected to another, for example, a single camera, a stand in a designated location. Now, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't think there's any problem with individuals. I think there are community groups that are providing a service which is currently free of charge, and they also provide a better quality and also cover committee meetings, which the council's current facilities don't. And there have been problems with the quality of what people are watching via the live streaming. This provides an opportunity for people to actually see council in action and be fully informed. So I think to restrict, not talking about restricting individual, I'm talking about those people that provide a voluntary news service for the community to be allowed to come in with the constraints that their equipment isn't stopping other people from viewing the meeting, and that their equipment is positioned in such a way that's not stopping people from getting out or coming into the meeting. I think if we say that we are a transparent organisation, then I think we should be allowing things like this for the community. And I've used the service many times to go back to look at meetings. Before I got elected, I went through several years of meetings, and that was only available. Not all the council meetings were working, and I was able to go back through using the community films that were recorded, and I found them very useful. And I think for community that can't watch or can't come in, it's a useful service. I think we shouldn't be restricting it as long as their equipment is within moderation. I'm not talking about excessive cameras in here. So,
I seek a seconder for the motion. Councillor Corimba, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yeah, well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Nowadays, I mean, just look at sport. We have multiple cameras looking at multiple angles of multiple things to get the best decision and best outcome. I don't think this should be any different. Our online service, as good as it is, does have its flaws and does have its issues, and until that gets rectified, and considering that this service is at no cost to the council, now if all councils were phasing this out, I'd understand, but when you consider our council just across the road, Alexandrina, have no issue with this setup, I have to really question why we are doing this, why we are trying to limit the amount of cameras. If the cameras are catching things that shouldn't be happening, that's not the camera's fault. That's the equivalent of saying, you know, I'm going to ban water because I want to stop drowning. We have to be serious and just let things be open and transparent. So I guess, yeah, I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you.
I'll seek any other members who would like to speak to the motion. Councillor Schiller, then Councillor Henderson.
When this first came up, I agreed with the concept of not having the cameras in here, but since listening to the argument presented by the proponent that had most to say about this particular issue, I'm sort of leaning, it's a tough call, this one. I was sort of leaning towards the fact that we are in a public role and we do have to take that into account. And so I'm dangling here waiting to listen to other people's argument, but from a transparency and a media access point of view, I may be voting with this motion.
Councillor Henderson.
I won't be supporting this motion. I actually don't care how many cameras out there. I just want to point out you're about 40 years too late to get my best side. My reason for not supporting this is because a piece of equipment the size of that one there, I believe, in an emergency situation, if we had to evacuate this room, is a health and safety obstruction. And that's my main concern. And when we've got a full gallery, it's almost full tonight, I think that would pose real problems in people getting out of this room in a hurry when this room is full.
Thank you. Any other member? Councillor Schofield.
I guess you're waiting for this one. Look, I'm not going to support it. I'm looking in the gallery at the moment and we have 6 cameras. Does that mean that we're going to have 6 different versions of tonight's meeting? I do know that one of the cameras every week is, or every meeting is actually aimed at myself. And I do know that. I saw that Mr. Charles. As for being transparent, I think we are. The fact that we do film our meetings, that the people in Victor Harbor can sit home in front of their phones tonight and listen to our debate and know what we're doing and saying. We get the full council meeting. In my scrolling through the internet, I don't see any other full 3.5, 4 hour filming of our council meetings being advertised. I have no issue we have 3 different people in the chamber tonight. So, and we have, what did I say, 6 cameras. I have no issue with those 3 people having 1 camera each. But I do agree with Councillor Henderson. There are a couple of small issues that camera presents, and people may think, look, that's being a little bit pedantic. One of the things is that as the camera comes through the side door, it does lift the mat, which creates a safety. Okay.
Order, please.
It does create an issue in risk management, in particular for councillors that we do have that have an issue with sight, and a few people have actually tripped on it. So if the camera coming in on the tripod is going to be allowed, then council need to address that issue to ensure that that mat does not move each time the camera goes through. I thank Mr. Lambrandi very much for the work that he's done for council and the amount of filming that he's done. But I still cannot understand why he needs 4 cameras. He did send a letter to council explaining why. And it is there for others to read. But no, I won't be supporting it. I'm quite happy for the 3 gentlemen to bring in 1 camera, but I don't think it is necessary for one to bring in 4 and then decide which components of the meeting he is going to put up for public consultation or public viewing.
Just remind the gallery, please. I know some discussions we have can be quite emotive. I just feel like if you don't engage with the elected members while they're talking, please. If that could be adhered to. Does any other member like to make a comment, speak to the motion? Yes, Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kemp. Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate the views around the chamber, and it's something that has come back and forth for quite a while now. I guess my concerns are about the proposed amendment put up. I'm not sure if it necessarily achieves what is trying to be achieved by it. I think especially the comments with respect to the definition of device. I think there's a few issues with some of the definitions put forward in the amended one. And even, I guess, if this was endorsed, I don't think it would necessarily allow for the structure that was coming in, noting there's, I think, a few people in the gallery that might not be able to see this side of the room, in which case the device we're referring to wouldn't adhere to this policy either. So I think from that point of view, as well as some of the others mentioned, I'm not willing to support this one. Thanks.
Is there any other member who'd like to make comment or ask questions? Councillor Quinton.
I'm just wondering if we perhaps adjourn this issue, because I agree with Councillor Mann that I don't like the wording of the proposed amendment, and I think it needs to have some better definitions put in before we can properly deliberate it.
Okay, Councillor Quinton, you're just moving a formal motion to adjourn this item. Could you please explain a little bit more about what timeframes you'd like the item to be adjourned to and for further investigation?
To the next meeting.
So you're adjourning the item to the August meeting of Ordinary Council. Seek a seconder for that. Councillor Schiller. All those in favour of adjournment of this item, please raise your hand. 4, and those against, raise your hand. Cool. That's a interesting point. Well, these are the times you really look forward to. I'm not quite sure whether we would actually achieve anything by adjourning this motion because of a number of discussions around what has taken place, and I guess we need to be looking at the actual definitions of what is a device and examples, etc., etc. And in saying that, that may be a good option as well. So it's really emotive at the moment about whether we can adjourn it or not. But I will vote against the adjournment. I think we need to resolve this tonight. There's been plenty of discussions on this. So we'll go back to the original motion. But I'll ask one question of the leader of the meeting. If Mr. Librandi wants to come up and do a quick 5-minute deputation on his system, so people have a better understanding about what that system does and why it does and how he does it. I seek leave of the meeting for that to take place. Can I have 2/3 majority for Mr. Librandi to present to the meeting? 1, 2, so we don't have a 2/3 majority. So we will go to the original motion. Anybody else want to speak to the motion that hasn't already spoken? No. Mr. Burns, Councillor Burns, would you like to close the debate?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to clarify, I wasn't talking about a specific community media. I was talking about any at all. And I think it's important that, and there are some constraints on the amount of equipment they bring in, not discounting that, but I think it's important that whilst there are restrictions on individuals, that those that are providing certainly voluntary media be allowed to bring in adequate equipment to film the meeting here. And I understand all the concerns that people have. I think the health and safety issues can get addressed. And I think there can probably be some negotiation about the size of equipment that comes in. but I think it's important that we don't restrict those voluntary groups that provide a service for our community free of charge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll, for the recommendation from Mr. Councillor Burns, that all in favour of the recommendation, please raise your hand. I'm sorry, to close the debate's gone, Councillor Schiller, I'm afraid. Those in favour of the recommendation by Councillor Burns, please raise your hands. Those against? The motion is lost.
I'd call a division, please.
Those people, those councillors in favour of the motion, please stand. We have Councillor Burns, Councillor Karimba. Those against the motion, Councillor Mann, Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Schiller, Councillor Quinton, Councillor Schofield, and Councillor Henderson. And the motion is lost. Thank you. 18.2, motion on notice, code of practice for meeting procedures, diversity commitment, Councillor Stuart Burns. The same recommendation as before in the regulations about at least 2/3 of the members of the council entitled to vote on the resolution, alter a code of practice, substitute or revoke a code of practice under regulations 6.3 of the local government meeting procedures 2013. Councillor Burns, you'd like to move your motion?
Yes, thank you. And I'm actually happy to move the amendment by administration.
Okay then.
So that council resolved to include the words "and beliefs" after the word "religion" within the diversity commitment statement on page 22 of the Code of Practice for Meeting Procedures to read as follows. Diversity commitment. The City of Victor is committed to diversity, equality and inclusion. We respect people of all ages, ability, genders, sexualities, religions, beliefs, cultures and backgrounds. So it's adding in beliefs.
Do you want to speak to it any further?
Yes, thank you. Currently, there's potentially a large group of people within the community that would be excluded, including Aboriginals. A lot of beliefs don't come under the classification of religion. By adding in beliefs, we include a number of different spirituality beliefs and followings, including Buddhism, for example. And that's why I was proposing it. If we are talking about inclusion, we need to actually include those that believe in gods and those that believe in spiritual development. It can be varied. I think we need to respect all the diversity we have within.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion? Does any member like to speak to the motion? All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. That is carried unanimously. Thank you. We go 18.3, motion on notice, members' allowance and benefits policy, Councillor Stuart Burns. So, Councillor Stuart Burns to propose his motion. Could you please propose your motion, please? There's also an alternative one from administration as well.
Well, I'm going to go with my original motion.
Going with the original motion?
Yes, thank you. To amend the members' allowance and benefits policy to reinstate the clause, a council member may obtain legal advice at the expense of council to assist the member in performing or discharging official duties or functions and duties.
Do you want to speak to that now?
Yes, thank you. I think it's important, whilst we are able to go to the CEO and get request advice on certain things, there will be, and I think administration have rightly put in a list of definitions of when it will apply. And I would say that where the matter relates to the achievement of council's role, functions and objectives, and or the council member's role. And so it's important that at times we may have require some clarification that maybe a termination of the understanding of the Act, for example, that may disagree with other interpretations. And I think that we need the option of getting that clarification. My understanding is that it was in place previously and it had only been utilised once or twice. So it's not as if it's going to be abused, and most things will be covered by going to the CEO and requesting. I just think that it's important that we have that option to be able to go out should the need arise. And I also agree with the administration's qualification of what it can't be used for as well. So I don't have a problem.
I seek a seconder for the motion. Councillor Corimba, would you like to speak to it?
Yes, thank you. I think we have to remember, and I know that we get told that we're all a team, but at the end of the day, we are elected members that were voted in by the public. The administration or the CEO as an employee, they're all employees, but to a degree there has to be a separation there if we don't agree with the decision. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Councillor Mann might be able to seek clarification or give me clarification on this, but when we get an opinion back, a legal opinion, it is exactly that, an opinion. And a counter opinion, what happens in that case? How do we know which opinion is more valid than the other? But my understanding is you'd actually have to go to court and try those two opinions. I think it's very important that we have this. Hopefully we never have to use it, but it's something that I think should be there for that specific reason. Thank you.
Councillor Mann doesn't have to answer the question, but if the CEO could answer that question, if it's possible.
I will try to. I guess the clarity is that the City of Victor Harbor is a whole, and you as the council chamber are like the board of directors, so to speak. So even as an individual elected member, if you think you can obtain your own legal advice based on this policy, it is still council's advice. When I seek advice on behalf of the council, it's not the administration's advice, it is the council's advice. And at any time in the chamber could say, we seek to have a second opinion, and then I would need to go and obtain a second opinion. It still is the council's advice. So your example where you say there's two different forms of advice, it would still be the council's advice, and you would be taking yourself to court with your same advice.
Is there any other member who'd like to speak? Councillor Schiller.
I will be voting against the motion, but I thought the motion that was placed before us from the administration was a better option in that it could have been discussed in a briefing session where we could have, there's a lot of detail there that's not there at the moment. For instance, if one of us decided we'd like to take council to task at every decision, you know, where's the leeway for how much funding each councillor could receive. Those sorts of issues haven't been answered. I've had a difference about certain issues in confidence with the council, and maybe I would have liked some legal advice myself. So I have got a little bit of like a kinship with this motion, but at the moment the motion is too up in the air.
Sorry, Councillor Corimba, I cut you off. Would you like to? Do you want to ask a question now?
Yeah, so the CEO, when you said that we would be seeking advice on ourselves, if as elected members we disagree with the advice provided regarding a matter, and then we go and seek another legal opinion, would that opinion be from the same legal company that would give us the first opinion, or would it be truly independent?
It would need to be truly independent. So that's the whole purpose. And it has happened before where we have had advice from different legal firms. We use different lawyers for different purposes, depending whether it's planning or human resources or other contracts or whatever it may be. So yes, it would be completely separate advice. And the chamber has sought a second opinion. There are times where you may need to.
Does any other member like to speak to this motion? No. Councillor Burns, would you like to close the debate?
I take a lot of the members' concerns about this, and I think I agree that we can have a policy that defines things. This is really putting this back into a policy on the benefits and support for elected members. It doesn't mean that we can't go through and define the criteria that is applied to. And again, I'm open to, if people are more likely to support the second option, I'd consider that, but not the first option.
Yeah, thank you. Look, just remind members that if someone feels strongly about these types of motions or recommendations, you can always raise them through questions without notice or motion on notice for the next council meeting. All those in favour of the motion, could you please raise your hands? And all those against? The motion is lost. Called for a division. All those in favour, please stand. Councillor Burns. Councillor Karimba. Those against? Councillor Mann. Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Schiller. Councillor Quinton. Councillor Schofield and Councillor Henderson. The motion was lost. We've got 18.4, motion on notice from Affordable Housing Initiative. Councillor Schiller. Councillor Schiller, would you like to propose your motion, please?
Am I able to ask a question of administration prior to deciding which way to head with my, whether I go with administration? My question was that obviously the wording that I've used in my own recommendation is pretty much in layman's terms and really gives a good understanding of what I'm trying to achieve, and not so clear in the administration's changed version. And I see that you've put there that it's a medium risk to council at the original motion, and just wondering what you find risky about the first motion that I've placed there.
Would you like me to read out the two motions? One's an alternative motion from administration, and then seek a clarification on the administration.
Thank you.
For the gallery. Thank you. All right. Councillor Schiller's motion was, as part of the urban growth management strategy, council prioritises affordable housing initiatives by reviewing existing zoning, planning overlays and TNV in Victor Harbor, with a view to encouraging urban renewal and medium density living in appropriate locations. Further, that council considers zoning, planning overlays and TNV, which allows subdivision of existing large blocks to smaller block sizes where appropriate. The alternative motion from administration that council incorporates affordable and accessible housing issues and challenges for the analysis and action within the current urban growth management strategy project, with a view to inform a code of amendment to the planning and design code that adequately supports affordable, accessible housing. Could I ask Director Padhouse to clarify any issues from Councillor Schiller on the alternative motion?
Through the chair, pardon me. The motion, or the alternative motion that I've suggested there, it's intended to honour and give effect to Councillor Schiller's desires in terms of what she's seeking to achieve. I think the reason it's there is because at the moment, it's really about an understanding of the urban growth management strategy. So it's a broader document from which other actions then emerge, other actions and plans and activities and strategies. So the intent is to analyse the causes, the challenges, the difficulties, the issues that may have some planning solutions in zonings and things like that, and then a strategy emerges from that for implementation. So at the moment, Councillor Schiller's drafted motion presupposes the outcome of the UGMS. There may be a number of ways that accessible and affordable housing can come into effect. The planning system's one of those ways, and it's probably an important way, but it does presuppose that that's the outcome would be out of those, the analysis of the challenges. And then secondly, it's very prescriptive in terms of the tools that would be used within the planning system around zoning, planning overlays, and technical numerical variations. So, and when I say it's prescriptive, it's potentially limiting. There's other mechanisms within the planning and design code. There's subcodes, there's other overlays, there's mappings, there's concept plans. There's a whole toolkit of planning instruments that can be used and doesn't need to be restricted to some of those that were specifically stated within Councillor Schiller's suggestion. So therefore, I've broadened it out that it becomes a code amendment within the planning and design code. All of those features are there. So that's essentially the difference within the two motions.
Thank you, appreciate that. So I'm quite happy to go with the alternate motion. Thank you. And if someone would like to read it out for me, please.
I certainly will do that again for you. The alternative motion that you've chosen to go with, Councillor Schiller, is that the council incorporates affordable and accessible housing issues and challenges for analysis and action within the current urban growth management strategy project, with a view to informing a code amendment to the planning and design code that adequately supports affordable and accessible housing. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Schiller?
Thank you. Just bear with me because I'm doing this from memory and I don't have the ability to read my notes, so I'm at a disadvantage. Just a comment, this is a way in which council can directly affect affordable housing. We don't have control over all things, but we do have some control over this particular part of planning. I realise that this also comes into state government and the Planning and Development Act, which is all encompassing. At the moment, we only have one, well, I am assuming we only have one area within our township which has a more liberal zoning for what I'd call medium scale density housing, which is in the centre of the township at the moment. And some of the specifications for frontages, setbacks and sizes of blocks in that particular location are still very conservative and wouldn't probably meet the sort of criteria which affordable housing in other areas are utilising at the moment. So obviously the zoning that is in that area still doesn't tick the boxes for affordable housing. My argument is that in regional towns we're still behind the 8 ball a bit with planning and development, and that's no fault of our council itself, but things are going to have to change into the future, and we're going to have to look at more regions within our township to bring accessible and affordable housing to areas. There are many areas of older housing stock that could be infilled with urban infill, and we now have a new retail precinct, and in that particular area there are a lot of large block sizes which could be reduced to accommodate modern housing like townhouses. We've got a lot of 1 or 2 persons homes, you know, with only a couple of people in it, and we have young people and tradespeople all looking for ways to get into housing at that ground level. And by having a look at our zoning, over the whole town within the urban growth management strategy, and also maybe even lobbying state government to look at how prescriptive and how the planning laws that have come in I think it was 2016, are really is real cookie cutter generic stuff that once it sits there, there's no room to move for councils anymore, where we used to have the ability to come in and have non-compliant developments or tweak some of the development, but that's not able to be done now. I think people need to look at the fact that changing times with people wanting to walk to where they want to go and have that access to convenience to places like grocery stores where they can actually walk to them, using their bicycles to get to those locations, and to reduce their use of their cars, to also provide good transport options, so that if you do need to go to the shops and you do need to get into a taxi, you're not having to be clocking up major bills through your taxi fares and have access to transport. I think young people are looking for a different sort of housing these days, and we're not catering for that within the City of Victor Harbor. Developers that may come in are going to be touting affordable housing within their developments, but is that they're going to have a ratio probably, but is that going to really truly be affordable housing? We're spreading out further and further into our rural properties, utilising good land that could be saved from the urban sprawl. And so by looking at trying to maximise the infill of our township, and I'm bringing this forward now to make sure that it becomes a priority when we go through the urban growth management strategy, our community plans, and any other strategies which relate to this particular issue. So that's my argument for bringing it up at this current stage. And I think this is really a way that the City of Victor Harbor can make a difference in a council context. Long term, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's something we've got to look long and hard at and make a priority for this. Thank you.
I'm seeking a seconder for the motion. Councillor Henderson, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Schiller. I'm pleased you've gone with the alternative motion put up by administration, because I believe that gives much more flexibility and opportunities into the future. I was a bit concerned with the original motion because it is very prescriptive, and particularly the last part of the last line, last sentence that is, allowing for subdivision of existing large blocks to smaller block sizes where appropriate. I think we need to be very, very careful about maintaining the characteristics of the City of Victor Harbor, the main part of town. The characteristics of that are what attract many visitors to Victor Harbor, and I think we need to be very, very careful about thinking of squeezing in more high-rise units onto the back of larger blocks as they sit. I think our town is attractive to our visitors as it is. That doesn't mean to say we shouldn't be thinking of incorporating affordable and accessible housing in the area. I'm very much in favour of that, and I've been talking about those issues for the past 4.5 years, ever since I came onto council. But maintaining the character of the main part of our town, I think, is also extremely important.
Thank you. Any other member like to speak to it? Councillor Karimba.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Angela, Councillor Schiller, for putting this up. We will be having issues with homelessness and housing affordability. It's not going away. It will only get worse. I'll support this. My only concern is that this is possibly going to take, I think in the commentary, it could take a long time to actually happen before we actually see any tangible changes. I think that the terminology is long-term structural policy change would take significant time to implement. While we're doing this, the issue is just getting bigger and bigger. As Councillor Henderson said, we've been talking about this for 4 years, your whole time, and that seems to be a lot of what we do is talk. I would encourage the council to actually start moving and doing what we can to really facilitate actually building more dwellings, because that's what's actually needed. Thank you.
Any other member would like to speak to the motion? I do have a question for clarification for Director Padhouse. Considering the code amendment under the recommendation, what's the time frame to do a code amendment once the urban growth strategy is being developed? So the time frames that we're looking at that something may take place.
It's a difficult question to answer. It depends on the scale and the complexity of the code amendment in some respects, and we've not tested the system in terms of a code amendment with this council. The previous, well, what were previously code amendments, the name just escapes me what they are, but the variations to the previous development plan in some respects could, our experiences were over years in some cases. Having said that, though, they were for fairly complex types of amendments. The critical thing would be to have all the ducks in a row, the strategic ducks in a row, so that it aligns with the state plan, it aligns with the urban growth management strategy, and all of the research is in place, so it informs a code amendment. And the idea is that the code amendment becomes an exercise as a result of that, because all the strategic work's done up front. But I'd have to say that it wouldn't take less than 6 months by the time you get to a code amendment, and that would be a fairly simple one.
Thank you. It's one of the situations, I think staff will maintain a monitoring process on this as they go through the urban growth strategy development, and keeping this in mind because it is a hot topic within all councils areas Australia. So I'll seek to move the motion. All in favour, please raise your hands. Sorry, sorry, my apologies. Yeah, closing
Can I just close the debate? Could I just close the debate?
Yes, you can, Councillor Schuller.
Just a comment about that Councillor Henderson made about the history of our township, and the only place where we do have a more liberal zoning is in the centre, where most of our, well, a great deal of our historical buildings are. And so the one spot that this can happen is restricted a lot by the fact that we've got such history in that particular zone. So that in itself is another tick as to why we need to find other areas within our city to bring affordable housing and bring more liberal zoning, more liberals in the zone that's actually in the centre of town to actually achieve affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the close of the debate. I seek all in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? Carried. We move to 18.5, motion on notice, housing and rental crisis proposal. Councillor Karimba. There's two motions here. Councillor Karimba has his motion as an alternative recommendation by administration. Councillor Karimba, which one would you like?
I'd like to go with my motion.
I'll go with your original motion.
Thank you.
Propose your motion, please.
My motion is that the City of Victor Harbor lobby state government to be the location of a trial solution to Australia's housing and rental crisis, namely the relaxation of provisions in planning laws which preclude anyone but immediate family members from occupying ancillary dwellings, also known as granny flats.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. The housing issue, or homelessness issue, and the housing affordability issue is a multi-levelled, complex problem that requires the same amount of solutions. What I'm proposing is nothing more than the local government ask the state government to relax the laws so that we can actually rent out and build granny flats. Now, as a builder, these dwellings are the quickest to build They are also very cost effective. And if you look at the largest growing cohort of homeless people, or the quickest growing group, that's elderly women over the age of 50. Granny flats or ancillary dwellings provide quite a few things. They provide safety because they're at the back of another building, a sense of possibly community with the dwelling in the front, and they're already getting built. I'm not asking to change the way they're built. I'm not asking to change any other thing other than that we can actually rent them out or build them for someone else. I've been told that one of the issues that may arise from this is people may take this up and build Airbnbs. We can actually put in provisions to say that these properties have to be rented long term at a lower rental requirement. So there's all these things we can do. At the moment, all I'm asking is that we ask the state government to look at this. I was here at a round table where the Minister for Social Services, Nat Cook, came down, and we spoke about this issue, and that was probably 6 months ago. And she said that all things are on the table. Come to me with any possible solution and we'll have a look at it. That's all I'm asking the council to do, is to put forward this as a option, and then we can then go on and talk to state government. But I would hope that something like this is very simple. We're not changing the way we build the dwellings. All we're doing is just changing who they can be rented out to. Thank you.
I'm seeking a seconder for this, Councillor Henderson. Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kurumba. I do appreciate where you're coming from, but I have to say I think the alternative recommendation by administration might be a better approach. And the reason for that is it's unlikely that a trial for a changed policy, a change of the planning law by the state government would happen for a single council like ours. I think a much better approach is to feed back to policies as they come on board, and one of those might be released in the future, code amendments, etc. But I'd like to suggest that maybe a better way to go about it is for this council, and I'm happy to work with you on this, we could maybe compile this together to a motion to the LGA for the LGA to lobby the state government. That might be a much better approach, because as a single council, I don't think we have much chance of achieving anything at all. So I'll not support the motion. I will support, if that doesn't get up, I will support administration's motion. But I'd like to add that we have a third or a second part to this, that we compile a motion to the LGA for the next LGA meeting, AGM.
Councillor Henderson, are you moving an amendment to this motion?
Not an amendment, but a suggestion for a further motion.
So you may be
flagging a possible further motion.
out of a question without notice.
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else, member council, to talk to this motion? Councillor Schiller.
I commend Carlos for bringing this to council, but I do appreciate that we're not likely to be granted a trial. I think that is fairly unlikely, but the sentiment that is in the motion is a great one. So I won't be supporting this particular motion, but I'm on the same sort of wavelength as previous councillor to look at the amended one, so that we can at least take those thoughts to state government in a better fashion.
Any other member? Councillor Burns, you had your hand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Whilst I quite like the alternative proposed by administration, I think we're going to do that anyway. So it's not something that we're not going to do. What I like about the motion is that it's trying to do something now, and if we don't try, we won't know. And whilst you may argue that only metropolitan areas, the Minister may only be interested in metropolitan, I actually believe they'll look at metropolitan and a rural area, and it's worth considering. I also agree with Councillor Henderson that if we are unsuccessful with this, we should look at lobbying through the LGA to get as many councils on side as well. But it doesn't mean that we can't try. If the minister's already come to us looking for ideas, then it's worth actually going back to the minister and say, this is what we'd like. Use us as a trial. They can only say no. But if we don't do it and we wait, it'll be a year, 2 years, and we need to be looking at doing something now.
Thank you. Any other member like to talk to this motion? No. I'll call upon Councillor Corimba to close the argument.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's input. I guess I'm a little bit more of a direct action sort of person. A lot of the, and I understand that council likes to go through the process. My concern is it'll be caught up in bureaucracy and it'll be a firm possibility of a definite maybe. This is simply asking state government to relax this provision for a period of time. I've had a lot of interest. I actually spoke on 5AA radio this morning. I had a lot of interest as to how this motion will turn out. It's such a simple thing. It's just literally asking them to do it. As Councillor Burns said, they can turn around and say no. All I'm asking is for a little bit of a, let's see how much we can push this. Once we put the ball in their court, then it's a different story. Thank you.
It closes the debate, so I seek approval for the motion. All in favour, please raise your hands. Those against? Sorry, go that again, please. All in favour, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 2, 3. The motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Henderson, do you still want to raise a alternative while we've got the debate going just on the side?
No, I'll introduce that at another time. Thank you.
Thank you. 18.6, motion on notice, Stock Road flood remediation investigation. Councillor Burns, would you like to propose your motion?
Would, Deputy Mayor. I just want to correct it. Administration have pointed out a couple of items in here that I think it's important to correct. I'd like that to read, utilise part of the 560,000 that may be available to obtain from government this financial year for construction or maintenance of Stock Road to remediate flooding.
Do you have that in writing, that amendment?
No,
for that
sorry.
change? Okay, just make sure we get it correct.
So it's utilised part of the 560,000 that may be available to obtain from government this financial year for construction or maintenance of Stock Road to remediate flooding.
Okay, I'll read it back to you.
Okay.
Your motion is to utilise part of the $560,000 that may be available to obtain from government this financial year for construction or maintenance on Stock Road to remediate flooding. Is that what your motion is?
Yes.
Would you like to talk to that?
Yes, thank you. There are many areas within Victor Harbour that council needs to look at addressing new roads, roads that are flooding. We can't obviously get to all of them. There's a large work program that administration have already targeted. I don't believe Stock Road is one of those. Stock Road has been an issue for flooding for quite some time. And if we do have some additional money that is available to be utilised, then I'm proposing my motion to utilise it to address at least one extra road or area.
I'm seeking a seconder for the motion. Councillor Corimba, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The community is looking at us now where we're spending our money. I think this is a really good motion. We can really have a good result here. This is money that didn't come out of the budget. It's government money, so I think we need to take some action. And I think Stock Road is definitely an issue when it comes to flooding. Thank you.
Is there any other member who'd like to speak? Councillor Schiller.
The commentary states that if we put this money towards this request, that we're unlikely to get it. So basically, we're throwing our grant application away by trying to get money for this in this particular way. So I'll be voting against it because it's written there in black and white that it's probably not going to go anyway.
Councillor Henderson.
I have questions rather than a comment. First of all, Stock Road has a ford. Fords have water flowing over them from time to time. I'm going to ask the first question based on that, based on it does have a ford for which it's designed for water to flow at times. When does that flow become flooding? The second question is, in that definition of flooding, over and above a certain height over the ford, how often does flooding occur on Stock Road? I believe it's only once in every 20 to 30 years.
I'll ask the CEO to clarify, or Director Hayter.
Through the Deputy Mayor, I don't have the exact answers to your questions in terms of how often does it happen, but I do know the council has actually commissioned a stormwater management plan, an urban stormwater management plan, in which it specifically has Stock Road included in. We've been waiting on the completion of that so that we can ascertain all of the areas where stormwater flood mitigation requirements are needed, and we can prioritise those based on the evidence-based report. That's what we've been waiting on receiving, and I believe it's very close where we'll be holding a workshop with members that we can then look at those priority areas. It includes Stock Road, part of that study. The council included Stock Road specifically in that study.
Any other member? Councillor Mann.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Kemp. Just a quick question. So I understand the proposed motion prior to being changed was about doing investigations and studies, and now we're looking at construction or maintenance. I'm just wondering just what we are able to construct or maintain if we haven't done those studies or investigations yet.
Through the Deputy Mayor, and Kathy Hayter may wish to add to it, sorry. Not much, because again, we require design and plans. So the study was providing us with those options and priorities, and then we would then look to allocate those priorities, do detailed design, and then construct.
Any other member have a comment or questions on this matter? I just have a clarification question for the CEO. In the event of a major storm event, is the ford in flood, is it accessible for people to move in and out, or emergency services to get through to Crozey Hill Estate?
Emergency service vehicles, if they're four-wheel drive vehicles, yes, they can go travel through the ford. That's what it's designed for, and all residents who live within that area are well aware of the ford. But again, that's not to say that council can't do more updates on it. But there have been some significant flood events. I believe 2016 was the most significant one that we've last had.
Thank you. Councillor Burns, would you like to close? And if no other members wants to say anything, Councillor Burns, would you like to close the argument?
I do. In regard to the investigation of the solution, the CEO has advised there is a report that will, I think, satisfy that component. And I'm talking about within the financial year. And given that that report is about to come to us in July or August, we may find that, yes, Stock Road needs to be done, but we won't have any money allocated in the budget to address that. What my motion does is provision an amount of money from the government that I understand, because it's construction or maintenance, will qualify. Investigation of a solution won't, which is what Councillor Angela was talking about. So what I'm doing is putting a provision in during the financial year. Once we get this report and look and say, okay, we need to do Stock Road work, but we don't have a budget for it without actually asking for more money. But in this case, we can get money from the government to address the issue. So I'm looking for support to do that. Not talking about right now, we've got a report that's about to be released that will cover that, which will go through the options and what we need to do. So that satisfies both criteria, I think.
That closes the debate. I seek approval. All in favour of this motion, please raise your hand. All those against, raise your hand. The motion is lost. Call of division. All those in favour, please stand. Councillor Byrne. Councillor Karimba. Those against. Councillor Mann. Councillor McKenzie. Councillor Schiller. Councillor Quinton. Councillor Schofield. Councillor Henderson. Motion is lost. We come to item 19, motions without notice. Does any member have any motions without notice? Councillor Karimba.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would like to put a motion up, and it's just regarding an email we've received regarding the marina that Mark Taplin is proposing. I've had a look at it. Can we seek leave of the meeting procedures to have a chat about this email?
Do you have your motion?
Yep,
written
I
out?
would. Yep, no, I don't, but I'm pretty sure I know what I want to say. My motion is that we give in principle support for consultation of the marina proposal, noting that consultation that comes at no cost to council, and that all the information from that consultation is sent back to council as a report.
Now I'll read that motion back to you and make sure we've got it correct. We give in principle support, noting that consultation comes at no, sorry, that's okay. Just remind members, where possible, if possible, have your motion without notice in writing so we can get it typed up. That's okay. The reason why I won't go into out of meeting procedure, we'll move the motion and second it, and then we'll go into out of meeting procedures with that. Councillor Schofield.
Can I just ask a question? When was this email sent? Because I didn't receive it.
Oh.
So therefore I can't vote on this because I have no information on it whatsoever.
Okay, I'm quite happy to read that, the email.
Okay.
Not everybody's received it.
Yep. Okay. Understand that. We'll go through the debate in a minute. The motion before us at the moment, the council give in principle support for consultation, noting that consultation comes at no cost to council, that all information from the consultation is sent back to council's report. This is about the Bluff Marina proposal, but I'll wait till I've preempted then. Can you read that, Councillor Karimba, on the screen behind me? Yep. Okay. Councillor Mann, do you
yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Kemp.
Question?
No, I'd just like to declare a general conflict of interest as my professional role gives rise to a perceived conflict. I will deal with this conflict by leaving the chamber.
Right, thank you, Councillor Mann. I'll read your motion out if you can't read it from the floor. The council give in principle support for consultation on the Bluff Marina proposal, noting that consultation comes at no cost to council, that all the information from the consultation is sent back to council as a report. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I just looked at the pictures. There seems to be a lot more information now than what we had before, and from what I can ascertain, the development is nowhere near what people consider the Bluff, which is, I think, the big hill at the end. The other thing that I sort of guess is that there is no cost to council. My concern is that if we do not give the community an opportunity to have a say in what goes on, potentially two things may happen. Number one, we lose a bit of credibility in regards to being open and transparent and including the community. And I guess number two, that something like this would become a major project, which would then bypass council and just go straight to state government, and then we would be left with whatever comes out of it. I understand that some elected members had reservations regarding the last proposal because it did come at a cost, but seeing as that has been alleviated, I see no problem with going out to the community or giving in principle support for the consultation. That's what we're here to do, is just give in principle support and actually listen to what the community have to say. This is not about supporting the proposal. This is just about allowing the community to have their say. We did have a small group of the community come here and give their say. I think it's only prudent that we allow the rest of the community now to have a say, especially now that there's more detail and there'll be less conjecture as to where this development would happen. From what I can ascertain, it also does tick a lot of the boxes that were missing in this town or that we're missing as part of our wants and needs, such as a hotel. You know, there's even a First Nations, looks like a First Nations art area or heritage building of some sort. You know, it does look like a pretty inclusive space. So I would love to hear what the rest of the community have to say. And as I said, I'd like to reiterate that there is no cost to the council to proceed with this.
Just for clarification, Councillor Corimba, who's proposing this public consultation? Who will be doing it? So the members have a better understanding.
Well, from the email, it looks like Mark Taplin will be doing the consultation.
At his own cost? At
his own cost. That's what the email says.
Okay.
And then whatever comes back of it.
Right. I'll seek a seconder for this motion. Councillor Burns would like to speak to it.
Yes, thank you. I haven't seen the email, and I'd like the opportunity, if we could take leave of the meeting, to at least read what it says. But I'm supportive of any public consultation that occurs for any type of development proposed for Victor, especially where there's no cost involved for the council. I understand that previously there were some concerns by elected members because of the cost, and I understand that. But from what has been said, I think you've got a developer that's wanting to consult with the community at no cost. So I would support that consultation. I'm not talking about whether we support the marina or don't support the marina, it's about the public consultation. I think that's important. But I'd also like, if we could take leave of the meeting, to at least have a look at what this email is, because I haven't seen it.
I'll raise the question to...
Point of order.
Yes.
We're being asked to make a decision on something that most of the elected members have no information on, and I think it's totally out of order.
Yep, look,
we haven't been supplied with any of the information that's being referred to. I have no idea what these plans are, etc. I don't know where the location is, so I think it's totally out of order.
Yes, I'll accept your point of order. There is a problem about information, and members need to have access to information before I make a decision. But this matter of a previous motion that was lost, that where council would not support in principle the Bluff Marina proposal, the CEO is looking for that resolution. If that's the case, then that resolution would have to be revoked and a new resolution put in place for in principle support by council. So if we just spend a few minutes while we're finding that information. Sorry, Councillor Stafford.
Look, I have no issue with the going out to public consultation, but I like Councillor Henderson, as Councillor Corimba stated, that there has been some changes. So if we need to be absolutely certain on what is going out to public consultation, because there are about 4 of us in the room that have not received the email, I don't think.
Have you? I can
Sorry,
forward
hold
it
on,
to-
point of order,
Sorry.
order, please. No interruptions while other elected members are speaking. It's been noted with the point of order from Councillor Henderson and the ruling that, you know, it's unfair for elected members to make decisions on lack of information. So I would suggest, and we are looking at some other information about whether this motion could be legal, because one about you have to revoke a previous motion which talks about in support from council. If that's the case, then I may suggest for any member who feels like to adjourn this to the next meeting, council meeting, so the proper background information can be provided to all members. Councillor Corimba.
Sorry, I've sent the email forwarded. I don't know why people didn't get it. I've just sent it to yourself and Councillor Burns.
I cannot read an email on the run like that.
Apologies. That's fine.
Councillor Schiller, you want to say something?
I appreciate what's trying to be done here, but it's just not. We shouldn't be voting on this at all. We should adjourn it or squash it or something, because it's just not good governance.
Are you moving a formal motion, Councillor Schiller, to adjourn this item?
I will.
Okay, when would you like to adjourn it to?
I guess I don't even think adjourning it is the appropriate thing to do, because I don't know what I'm adjourning. So it probably just needs to be voted on and then brought back in a more appropriate way.
Okay, I think to clarify this up, to give opportunity for elected members to access information, look at previous resolutions which, you know, may affect this resolution or recommendation. I'll request that I'll ask Councillor Corimba to put this in motion on notice for the next council meeting, so that all members can get access to the information and plus the administration's previous resolution that was passed. So we'll move that to the next council meeting.
Yeah, I didn't mean to razz everybody up. That's fine.
No, it's okay.
No sweat.
Just to clarify, Councillor Corimba, that you need to put this motion on notice in writing to the CEO or the Mayor for the next council meeting in August. And I hope it will have all the background documentation provided, the email, previous resolutions, etc. Councillor Burns, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, just a clarification. What time did the email come in?
I've got no idea.
Yeah,
I haven't have my computer in front of me.
I didn't see it. I just wondered when.
No. So, all right. So that motion without notice now being requested to be moved to motion on notice at the next ordinary council meeting. As we're now at 8 o'clock, yes, Councillor Burns.
I had just a motion without notice, if I could.
Okay. I seek leave of the meeting to accept this motion without notice, or we have our 8 o'clock break, which we should be looking at having a break for 10 minutes. Would elected members like to have a break, or would they like to accept this motion without notice? I'll seek 2/3 of the majority to have a break. Right, we'll have a break for 10 minutes. Come back at 1:15. Thank you. 1:15. We have another motion without notice from councillor Burns. Councillor Burns, your motion on notice, without notice, sorry, I won't accept due to the fact that it has a budget implication to it, because for staff to get the hard copy out on the same day as the electronic copy goes out, they'll have to stay behind after hours, which is overtime costs, to actually print the copies out, and then they'll have to wait around and wait for elected members to come and collect those copies. My understanding, the hard copies can be made available on Thursdays. The staff can get those out on a Thursday. So if the electronic copy goes out on a Wednesday, the hard copy can be released on a Thursday, the earliest.
If it's the next day.
When?
Rather, because at the moment I'm getting them, 2.5 days from the meeting to 3 days.
I'll ask the CEO to clarify. Thank you.
Just like to clarify, in most cases, the actual agenda is required to go out to council members on the Tuesday. Your policy states all members get an electronic copy. It's only those members who have asked for a hard copy. Those are actually provided on the Wednesday. It's been available on Wednesdays. When the members choose to come and collect it is up to you. But in most cases, we meet our requirement by having it available and distributed on the Tuesday electronically. Not all members receive a hard copy. I think it's only a few actually. And it does come out if most cases on the Wednesday it's made available hard copies, and we say that in the email that we send it to you electronically. Hard copies for those members are available.
Stand about the electronic, but I have problems reading the electronic.
Yep.
Having a disability, so
no, but I'm saying it's available for you on the Wednesday, the hard copy.
Okay, well, we get emails saying, it's only available on I think it was Thursday after 2:30. I think it was this week.
I'll just read out the your motion without notice. That council members receive hard copy of meeting agendas and attachments on the same day the electronic version is distributed. For that to take place, it requires staff to be held back to print it out over time, budget implications.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
And but as the CEO said, if it's the next day, I'm fine with that.
Okay, well, I believe it's understood that the hard copy is made available the following day after the electronic version has been sent out.
That's
and
fine.
if you do have any issues around that, the CEO certainly will accommodate and the staff will help and support you. So I've just allowed the motion without notice. Are there any other motions without notice? If not, we'll go on to item 20.1 is a confidential order review of various items. And, yes, that's it. Thank you very much. Look, Director Karen Rokaczynski has a response to Councillor Karemba's question on the library item.
Oh yeah, I looked it up through the chair while we were having our break, and it's not part of the City of Victor Harbor collection.
Thank God.
Thank you. Okay, confidential items, confidential order review, various items. That the recommendation one is that pursuant to section 92 of the Local Government Act 1999, the council orders that all members of the public, except the Chief Executive Officer Victoria McCurdy, Director Community and Development Graham Pathouse, Director Environment and Infrastructure Kathy Hayter, Director Corporate and Customer Service Karen Rokaczynski, Group Manager Governance and Finance Kelly Knight-Stacey, Executive Assistant Katie Common, and Council Member Support Officer Bridget Pereira be excluded from attendance at the meeting for agenda item 20.1, confidential order review various items. That the Council is satisfied that pursuant to section 93G of the Act, the information to be received, discussed or considered in relation to the agenda item is information relating to matters that must be considered in confidence to ensure that Council does not breach any duty of confidence. The Council is satisfied that the principle that the meeting be conducted in a place open to the public has been outweighed by the need to discuss these matters in confidence. I seek a mover for that, Councillor Henderson. The seconder, Councillor Schiller. Would you like to speak to the recommendation? All members in favour of the recommendation, raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Recommendation